6, 2021. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of
of
America,
the United
and
States
to
of
the
America,
republic for which it
to the
stands,
republic for which it stands,
God,
one nation under God, indivisible,
is for all.
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Kurtzwell. We'll move on to roll call this evening. Please remember to state your location when we come through for roll call. Councilmember Dill.
President, City of South Lyon.
Thank you. Councilmember Walton.
President, City of South Lyon.
Thank you. Councilmember Kennedy.
President, City of South Lyon.
Councilmember Kurtzwell.
Present, City of South Lyon.
Councilmember Kibble.
I'm here and I'm in South Lyon.
Thank you. Councilmember Richards.
Present, City of South Lyon.
Thank you. And I am also present at City Hall in lovely South Lyon, Michigan. With that, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from July 12th, 2021. Councilmember Kibble.
It's just a mini thing on page 6. There's a comment in there from my comment, the last line of it. It says, but everyone should us their common sense and it should be used. They just dropped the E. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kibble. Councilmember Kennedy.
I'll move the minutes as amended.
I'll support.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. Approval of the bills.
There are no bills.
Councilmember Kennedy.
I'll move the bills.
There are no bills.
We have attorney bills in the back.
Oh,
I'll support.
Thank you, Councilmember Walton. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. Approval of tonight's agenda. Councilmember Dill.
I'll move the agenda.
I'll
I'll
support.
second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. Tonight's consent agenda, authorization for mayor to sign Clemis agreement. Councilmember Kurtzwell.
Thank you. I move the consent agenda.
I'll
I'll
second.
support.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes. At this time, we will open the floor for public comment. Please remember to state your name and address. Please also remember that we have a 2-minute time limit and also a second public comment at the end of the evening as well. City Clerk Deaton, do we have anyone volunteering to speak for public comment this evening?
We do not.
Okay, we will close public comment. We'll move on to the discussion of downtown this evening with Nate Mack.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Sorry, let me get my calendar here. At the July 17th Farmers Market, the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, MDARD, was at the market for an evaluation. While there were no major corrective actions required from the vendors, there were some minor corrections that vendors needed to make, which was properly labeling cottage food products that the vendors have. So they provided them with the cottage food standards and what you need to do and how to label them properly. And, they'll be back maybe this week. I think might be this week or next, just to ensure that those have been done. So that was good to see that we didn't have any major violations that needed immediate corrective action or any vendors had to stop selling their products at the market. I was able to install 20 succulents in the pocket park on the pallet up against the building of the 12 kitchen elves. We got those up, which I'm glad. I think they look pretty good down there. But yeah, initially there was some miscommunication between myself and the design committee volunteers. I thought that they were getting the succulents, and so I didn't get them. And then they said, no, we're not. And so I said, okay, I'll go get them and put them up. So they're up now. As far as the shade cells go, I have not been successful in getting the other two gray ones up as we had originally planned on. The building owner said that the mortar is soft in the building and he doesn't want, he worries about things being drilled into the side of his building. So Curvin's Creamery opened on Saturday. It seemed like it was a very successful opening for them. There was a lot of Facebook attention that we got. I shared a couple of posts from them, and I think the overall reach for people was 5,000 between the two posts. So that was good to see. At the last DDA board meeting, one of the board members made me aware of a parking spot located north of South Lyon Cycle on Liberty Street that was in need of repair. DPW was able to go and put some cold patch on that last week and fix that. So thankful for their efforts to respond to that and get that spot fixed up. Last week, State Farm Insurance at 121 East Lake Street installed 3 new second story windows on the building. I was told that they're not going to be putting the awning up at this time, or a new awning up at this time, but it's good to see that those new windows are in place. The RCA building had their mechanical inspection on Monday of last week and passed. Upcoming will be their plumbing and electrical inspections, and then the fire suppression system after that, I believe. So it's good to see some progress there with the mechanical inspection being done and then passing that. And then last week, I believe, I met with the owner of Grand Trunk to discuss their mural and talk about the guidelines the DDA has established. She's let me know that they're going to move ahead with the artist that she has been in contact with for about 2 years. So hopefully we'll be seeing some movement on the mural here soon. So yeah, that's the report for the evening. If anyone has any questions.
Okay, great. I bet you do. Councilmember Dild, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just really quickly, I was happy to see this update on the RCA building. There were some weird rumors going on that construction had stopped over there, and I just wanted to ask if they're still on target for, I think they were looking at October.
So the construction hasn't stopped. Maybe the construction outside has, but they're
Right,
still doing
that's
work
what I
on the
figured.
inside. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, great.
But yeah, I'm
That's all.
not. Yeah, as far as the October opening date goes, that's still the hope. I'm not sure where they're at with that, but
Okay, thanks so much.
Councilmember Kurtzwell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nate, I just wanted to know, do you get around in the city and sort of thank business owners for making an investment in our town? For example, maybe you know, maybe you don't know. Have you been to Lucas, Coney Island? And have you met the owner there that's down on 9 Mile?
I have not been there, no.
Well, if you are able to, maybe you could stop in and chat with him. He's there every day, and he is pumping a ton of money in a new facade on Lucas, Coney Island, right there at the corner of 9 Mile and Pontiac Trail.
Okay.
Very well established restaurant, very well respected owner. And he's doing something for South Lyon, and it's a really, really nice upgrade that he is doing. And I would think that the city would go in and thank these business owners for what they're doing. So
Yeah, definitely.
thank you.
Councilmember Kivel, did you have something? Go ahead.
I did. I was wondering if you had any more contact with either Dave or Deborah Neal about their expectations with the theater.
I have not. I've reached out to them a couple of times, but I haven't heard anything back. So I'll keep trying to get in contact with them, but I haven't been able to.
Okay, I'm just heartened by the fact that they've kind of had a change of mind, so that I'm hoping that holds. All right, thank you.
Councilmember Kurtzwell, go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to add a tagline to that. I think the Neals are exploring their options. And I think they're being optimistic that there will be a good resolution for the city of South Lyon. But at this time, I don't think they're prepared to discuss anything publicly.
Yep, that's my understanding as well.
All right, well, thank you. Anyone else have anything for Nate tonight? All right, thanks a lot, Nate.
Thank you.
Move on to the fire chief report. Chief Vogel.
Good evening, Mayor. Just 2 quick items. I have a lot on the agenda tonight, so I'm gonna be quick. At 8 p.m. on Saturday night, the tornado sirens were activated in the city of South Lyon. I think the tornado was not very close, but they did the whole Oakland County. And then I heard reports it might have gone off again, but I think people were reporting that maybe it was the Green Oak sirens that were going off, or maybe Lyon Township. I'm pretty sure Green Oak went about 15 minutes after ours did. We didn't have any calls, so I don't think the weather affected the city. And finally, last council meeting, Councilwoman Walton brought up the memorial. Been working pretty hard before COVID hit to maybe do something with the bell in McCaddy Park. I was working with Dana Johnson, and then COVID hit and kind of put a break on that. But the good news is the Memorial Committee, Chief Sovic and myself have been asked to be part of this group. We were supposed to meet last week, but it got postponed to the first week of August. I'm really hoping that we can have this done. There's going to have to be some funds generated, and then look at some plans, and then there's some discussion about the bell. There's a debate now if we're going to fix the bell. I'm pretty strong against that. I think we should leave it cracked. I think that's some great history that, you know, one day somebody came into the city on Sunday and found the city hall had collapsed. So I hope to report soon with some detail after we do meet. And that's all I have tonight, Mayor.
Thanks, Chief Vogel. Councilmember Walton, go ahead. Oh, you're muted, Councilmember Walton.
Is that better?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Vogel, for that update. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I know that's been your thing, and me too, but I think COVID kind of put the brakes on that. I was hoping to have it done by now. Chief Sovic and I are going to reach out to the community. I even had the South Lyon Herald reach out and ask questions about your statement last week. So I think I can get some good traction. I'm excited to see the designs that they have proposed for us next week. So I'm hoping that Sovic and I can get this really moving soon. So
Excellent. What day did you say that meeting was?
Chief Sovic, is it the 5th?
5th, 10 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Kurtzwell, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Chief Vogel, I had a lot of people, particularly yesterday and today, that were asking me questions about the tornado sirens. And could you just sort of give a real quick rundown on when the siren goes off? I think some people think it only goes off when there is a tornado. Some people thought it goes off when the winds are high, like over 50 or 60 miles an hour. Some people said, well, wait a minute, it only goes off if there's a tornado in your city. Other people thought, what? No, it goes off if there's a tornado in your county or within 50 or some miles. A lot of confusion out there.
Yeah, I agree.
Could you just clear things up?
So the policy we have is if there is a tornado, what's the word I'm looking for? That if the National Weather Service feels that there's conditions that looks like a tornado, they will set the sirens off in Oakland County. The one that they identified was in White Lake. So at 8 o'clock, they sent Novi, our dispatch, is told of this warning, and they set the tornado sirens off. I'm encouraging everybody to get in a safe location, and then maybe with your phone or with some type of radio, try to get to, WJR or one of those radio stations and try to find out exactly what they're saying, because it was confusing, especially since I think it took 10 to 15 minutes for them to Livingston County to set their sirens off. And I'm still not quite sure when Lyon Townships went off. The problem is we have two dispatch centers, Oakland County, which does Lyon Township, and then Novi, which does the South Lyon Police and Fire. I'm pleased that ours was pretty quick. The tornado was identified north of us. They set them off. I immediately came to town. We staffed the station, and it was pretty dark. For those of you who are like north of 11 Mile, near 12 Mile, it was really, really windy, really, really dark. I'm surprised we didn't get a call, but I think it scooted around us. So if you hear the sirens, get safe and then try to find out where it's at. I like WeatherBug. It's got a pretty good app. There's some really good apps out there that I think people should utilize.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Councilmember Kurtzwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I think some people were confused and, you know, maybe they were blaming and they shouldn't be. So what I'm getting from you is that,
Hey, bud.
excuse me, is there somebody on a phone?
Oh, that's okay.
Clerk Deaton, could you give me a hand with that? Thank you. Go ahead, Councilmember Kurtzwell. I apologize.
No, that's okay. My understanding, I just want to clear it up, that the South Lyon Fire Department is not the originating agency
No.
of when to turn that siren on, that it's coming from somebody else. So they
Correct.
can't
We don't do it.
claim.
Please don't do it.
Okay,
Paul doesn't do it. It comes from when they get word in Oakland County. It probably comes through the county to Novi, and then they activate the sirens. Chief Weir, he's my dispatch expert. Am I wrong on that? I guess he's not on. I'm sorry. But we don't do it.
okay,
It comes from a 24-hour monitor dispatch center.
okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Councilwoman, well,
Go ahead, Chief Weir.
they're activated when there's a severe thunderstorm warning with 70-mile-an-hour winds or greater in the county, or a tornado's touchdown within the county, and they'll be set off through Oakland County Dispatch.
Well, that's a very important piece of information that you just added to the conversation. So the sirens can go off not just when there is a tornado sighted in the county.
Correct. It can be a severe thunderstorm warning with 70-mile-an-hour or greater winds.
Okay, thank you. Great clarification. Thank you.
And that's probably due to the fact that sometimes it takes a day from the national weather to decide if it is a tornado or not, and then rate the tornado. So I think they have that built-in miles per hour standard.
Anyone else have anything for Chief Vogel tonight? All right, great. Thanks a lot, Deputy Chief Weir and Chief Vogel, for your clarification on that. I also was getting a lot of feedback on that, and it was a little confusing to try and understand when and why the alarms go off. So that's great. So thank you. Great question, Councilmember
Just to
Kurtzwell.
be clear, there was a dangerous storm.
Absolutely.
People shouldn't
Anyone that
ignore-
saw the radar, Chief, we got lucky. It was just
Yeah,
north of us. It was
It
nasty.
was coming. It really looked like it was coming. So I can't stress enough that if you hear that siren,
Get safe. Yep,
get safe and then try to figure out why.
certainly.
Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you for all that. We'll move on to the police chief report and Chief Sovic.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got a number of things for you tonight. Go through them fairly quickly. Comcast phones and internet system, we absolutely love it. It's a great system. It's been running flawless. So we had quite the challenges and obstacles to get it up and running, and very timely delayed. But it's so nice, you know, if I can miss a phone call, I can get an app. I have an app on my phone here that lets me know if someone's trying to call me at work here. Plus, I can also call for it if I need to. So great system. Very pleased with it. It took a while, but just absolutely love it. The Motor Fest is coming this weekend, this Saturday, the 31st. Pontiac Trail and 10 is basically going to be shut down at 6 o'clock a.m. until 7 p.m. Lots of activities going on there. I talked to Deb and Doug Cook from the committee today. Back on July 7th, they actually sent out this big long letter list to the residents on Lake Street, Liberty, Reese, and Detroit, basically talking about the same footprint as Lake Street Cruisin', talking about in case of emergency, several other things, how the streets are going to be closed down. There's going to be the reserved parking for some of those residents that live at 10 Mile and Reese. That's going to be adhered to. It's going to be basically the same blueprint as the Lake Street Cruise. And so they've been busy sharing information with those around us. And we're also going to hit that on our social media as well about the street closures and the temporary no parking signs and the detours. So I will get together with Superintendent Varney sometime this week, maybe tomorrow, and just kind of nail over the details again. But we're looking forward to good weather and a good event for that that's going on. Just a quick COP or public relations. This is from Officer Barber at 11 o'clock at night. He noticed a vehicle parked next to Sunrise Dental. He recognized the vehicle as belonging to the gentleman who does after-hours lab pickup and deliveries. I stopped and checked on him. He said he was okay and thanked me for checking. The big part about that is we get to know our community. We get to know his area. At 11 o'clock, he sees this vehicle. He thinks it may be suspicious, but then he recognizes it because the time and time again that he's checked the area at 11 o'clock, and he knows that this is the guy that's just doing after-hours pickup. So that's just another way, ways that we're actually connected to the city, and we know what's going on around us. Just a shout out to the DPW with all the rain and all the grass cutting they've been doing, the city parks and the buildings and the city buildings, everything looks great. They're always just, every time I see them, there's a zipping by my office, you know, on a lawnmower. So I really appreciate what they do, and they keep the city looking great. So shout out to Chief Vogel and the whole fire department. We have a great working relationship with the fire department. I don't think it's ever been better. Ever since this COVID started, especially Chief Vogel and I have been in contact with each other just about every single day for the last year and a half. We stop over there and we share information, see what's going on. What do you need? What, you know, how can you help me? So great working with Chief Vogel at the FD. Movie and concert at the park this Friday evening. It's probably going to be a busy evening. The weather should be halfway decent, and you're going to be able to see our officers there and mingling, and so we'll be around as well. And finally, we just received the traffic study from TIA regarding the speed limit on 10 Mile there, and Lieutenant Baki and City Manager Zelik and I talked about it today. We're in the process of putting together a report for you and a recommendation as far as our investigation on what we've seen and people we've interviewed and everything. So that should be coming out fairly soon. So other than that, I think that's about all I have for you tonight, Council.
Thanks, Chief. Anyone got anything for Chief Sovic this evening? All right, thank you very much, Chief.
Yep.
With that, we're going to move on to unfinished business number 1 this evening. Purchase of 2021 Spartan Smeal 100 platform aerial truck. Chief Vogel, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. So this is part 2 of the special meeting we had 4, 5, 6 months ago. I have Chief Weir on. I believe Patricia Tiernan is on. So I will take on any logistic questions. Chief Weir is good to talk about the truck, and Patricia to talk about financing the truck. Real quick, the timeline is, if approved tonight, we would then have the contract signed this week with the manufacturer and the vendor. We would then have to do a couple other paperwork, and then we would have what's called a pre-build meeting in August, which Chief Weir would take his team to the manufacturer in Michigan, and they would start planning for the truck. Probably everyone's wondering, when would the truck arrive? Well, it's hard to tell. When we get, I would say 12 to 14 months from when the pre-build is complete. At the pre-build, Chief Weir and his team will sit down with engineers from the chassis cab builder and then the ladder builder from Nebraska. And they fine tune it. It is a long process, 8 to 10 hours, where they go line by line. And they want to make sure that we are getting the truck that we want in South Lyon that'll meet our needs. Once that is done, then they will start manufacturing the chassis in Charlotte, Michigan, and the cab. Once that's complete, Chief Weir's team will drive back to Charlotte, Michigan and do the sign off on the chassis and the cab before it's taken out to Nebraska to start building the truck. I hate to put a timeline on it because I'm just not sure. As we learned from the rescue truck, COVID has hurt vendors. It's hard to get parts, material, and labor. I'm pretty confident that they're sticking with 12 to 14 months. So once we can get this process done, I think we can probably by September, October next year, I'm confident the truck will be here. In the meantime, we keep putting Band-Aids on the current 2000 truck. We had to, we couldn't help the cruise in with the banner on the street because I'm afraid the truck wouldn't go down. We currently have an emergency status only for emergency scenes. We're debating on how much to spend to get it so it's functional, and that'll be updated soon. I kind of like to open it up to the group, to council. we were very grateful in the team that we've had and the support. I would love to hear if you have any questions, concerns. I'm disappointed I wasn't able to get a demo for us. Again, every time they would make a demo, somebody bought it. I'm confident in the vendor, and I'm excited to get started, and I'd love to hear some questions, concerns.
Councilmember Kivel, you go ahead.
I was just curious, you hear about auto manufacturers having issues with chips and things. I imagine that there's plenty of boards in a rig like yours. Do you foresee any of that having an impact on the progress?
When I ask them how long it's going to get to take this truck, chips never come up.
Okay,
They seem
good.
confident in their team, in their manufacturing. Their concern is material. Steel, aluminum, stainless steel seems to be their concern. I'm pretty confident that we'll get through the chassis and the cab without issue. I'm just not sure what's going to happen when it goes out to Nebraska. I know Detroit put in a very large order with the manufacturers, and they've been delivering. So I have confidence that they'll be able to do the best they can and helping us out and getting the truck here as scheduled.
Well, I'm sure you'll do everything imaginable to try to make sure that you have it back as quickly as possible. So that's all I had. Thank you, though.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll chime in just for a quick second, Chief. Don't be disappointed about us not being able to get the demo truck out here, because once we get that bad boy on premises, I'm sure we'll break her in. No problem with the
I
community.
promise a council event. I'm sorry it didn't happen. It just seems like everything that was scheduled fell apart. You know, I was hoping to see the Detroit truck, but they needed it so bad they put it in service. And then the demo that was headed to Michigan made a stop in Muskegon, and they loved it so much that it never left. So
Out of your control, Chief. Don't worry about it. Councilmember Kennedy, you go ahead.
Chief, I think you and Deputy Chief Weir have done a great job on putting the package together and answering questions that we had previously. I'd just like to go ahead and make the motion to approve a purchase of the 2021 Spartan Spiel 100 platform aerial truck for $1,500,000, including a down payment of $250,000 from CS1 Emergency Apparatus. Is that CS1 or CSI?
I believe that's an
CSI.
aye. Yep.
CSI Emergency Apparatus LLC from account 101-335-978.
I'll support.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Councilmember Kurtzwell, go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to listen to the financial explanation, please, from Patricia Tiernan.
Good evening. Did you have any specific questions, Councilmember Kurtzwell?
Well, I'm interested in, this is a rental payment schedule. Is that what this is?
This is yes, it's a lease agreement. This is the same agreement that we brought for your review during the budget workshop when we first discussed the truck back in March of last spring or winter. And the company that at that time, we had a few different options. It seemed council was most interested or thought we should pursue working with REV Financial Services, which is the financing arm for CSI Emergency Apparatus. So they, work with municipalities quite a bit across the country, especially in Michigan, for similar lease purchase agreements. And there is a separate resolution that was attached that will be for the financing if council decides to approve that this evening. So that will be separate than the actual truck purchase, which is the motion on the floor right now. But essentially we'll be putting down $250,000 down payment that'll be made directly to the truck manufacturer, CSI Emergency Apparatus. And that will be made at the time the contract is signed, if it's signed this week. The remaining portion that's due on the truck will be financed, we're proposing to be financed for $1,250,000 through a lease purchase agreement. It'll be a 5-year agreement. And we will make our first purchase or first payment on that the schedule will start in July of 2022. And then we'll each July after that until we have finalized the payments. All of the terms that we had discussed previously are in this contract. There is no option for early termination if we could do the financing within the first year. But after that, if we pay a certain percentage of the principal, we could terminate early if we decide at some point we wanted to pay the truck off, because I know that was a concern. Also, our legal advisors, we had bond counsel review all of these contracts. So Miller Canfield has gone through and reviewed the financial documents. They have drafted their attorney opinion letter, which they have worked with the attorneys for REV Financial Services and their arm, which is Pinnacle. And so everything meets, standard Michigan law for, what a municipality can and cannot do with the finance or with financing a fire truck.
Okay, I just still want to make sure that we have the option to pay it off early if we want. Number two, title to the truck does not pass until we own it. So I just want to get that out there, that we really don't have title to the vehicle, until actually it's paid off. And I just want to make sure that the interest rate is fixed over the term of the lease.
It is. The interest rate is fixed over the term of the lease, which is addressed in the REV schedule.
Yep.
That was in here, and that was the same interest rate that we discussed back in March. They were able to keep that locked in for us, and that is good through the end of this week, through July 30th.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm sorry
I
about
have a couple of questions.
Go ahead, Councilmember Richards.
Patricia, I have two questions in here. I've read through this, and it's probably in here. I assume it is, but I can't find it. Do we have, number one, do we have absolute protection that we can't lose this truck after we've made payments on it on our timely schedule? Okay. And number two, on Article 10, where it says rental payments to be unconditional, where it says each lease shall be absolute and unconditional in all events without abatement. Could you please explain that to all of us exactly?
Unfortunately, I'm not a lawyer, so I would actually need to, if Patrick doesn't mind, Patrick McGow from Miller Canfield, he might be able to answer that question for us.
Yes, I can answer that question. So the document that we're talking about now is the document that is called a Master Equipment Lease Purchase Agreement. This is really the financing contract for the fire truck. And the way this really works is that the entity that is the other party, they call themselves a lessor, but this is essentially a financing agreement where you are paying for the purchase of the truck and financing it over 5 years. So it's really not like a car lease where you have it for 2 years and then it goes back to the auto company. This is more like a purchase. So the reason that language that you identified in paragraph 10 is that the party in this agreement is the lender. So this is REV Financial Services, which is the financing arm related to this manufacturer, and the company Pinnacle, which is a national financing firm for equipment. Their agreement is really a financing document, kind of like a loan between them and the city. So what they're basically saying is that once you enter into this loan, you have to make the payments. If there's an issue with the truck manufacturer or the warranties or anything like that, that's between the city and the vendor. But the financing, once they provide the money to buy the truck, essentially you've got to make the payments for it. And if there's a dispute over the truck or the quality or the warranties, that's got to be handled directly with the manufacturer. So this reads, it's really more like a loan document than a typical, what you would think of. And that's why it talks about the rental payments are unconditional, because once you get the $1,250,000 from them to essentially buy the truck, you have to pay back the $1,250,000 regardless of whether there's an issue with the truck. That issue with the truck would be covered by the warranties with the manufacturer.
Okay, if we're all agreement on this, it's much clearer to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Councilmember Kivel, go ahead.
I mean, we just look at it as it's a lease to buy document. So, I mean, we've done that before. So.
Thank you. So forgive me on this. I know we had a motion by Councilmember Kennedy. Was that supported by Councilmember Dill?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. City Clerk Deaton, as long as does anyone have any further discussion on this? City Clerk Deaton, could you lead us in a roll call vote on this first motion?
Sure. Kurzweil,
Yes.
Dilg,
Yes.
Walton,
Yes.
Kennedy,
Yes.
Kivel,
Yes.
Richards,
Yes,
Pelchat.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Motion passes.
Mayor, may I have a moment?
Yes, absolutely, Chief.
On behalf of the South Lyon Fire Department, I am very grateful to City Manager Patricia, Weir and his team, and finally council. I'm very, very pleased how hard we worked, and I'm grateful, and I know that this truck will meet the needs of the city of South Lyon, and I'm very, very grateful. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Chief Vogel.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Weir. Thank you, Patricia. And I mean, I think I speak for all of us on council. Yep, yep. We're gonna go to that one next, I promise. That we hear you and we know that this is gonna be a benefit for our community. So this was never a question. So.
Thank you again. Thank you.
Yeah. Patricia, I saw you hold up that second resolution, or City Attorney Hamame. What's the process here on this second resolution?
The process?
Yeah, do we need to read this whole document?
No, you just
Okay.
adopt this resolution.
Okay, thank you.
Patricia, is the agreement attached?
Yes.
Yeah, I see it.
If I could jump in on that.
Go ahead,
since I
Patrick.
prepared it. I think that the motion would be to approve the resolution authorizing master equipment lease purchase agreement for aerial ladder truck in the form presented and on file in the packets. That resolution essentially authorizes the city to enter into this agreement for the financing of the $1,250,000 for 5 years at the 2.29% interest rate. It authorizes the mayor, clerk, and city manager to sign all the related documents, and the actual form of the agreement and related financing documents are attached to that resolution. So I think the motion would be to adopt the resolution in the form presented in the packet.
Thank you, Patrick, for your clarification on that. I do appreciate that. Councilmember Kennedy, go ahead.
I'll make the motion to adopt the resolution as presented in the package following the guidelines that been provided by Patrick McGow there.
I'll support.
We have a motion by Councilmember Kennedy, supported by Councilmember Kivel. Do we have any further discussion? City Clerk Deaton, could you please lead us in a roll call vote?
Dilg,
Yes.
Richards,
yes.
Kivel,
Yes.
Kennedy,
Yes.
Walton,
Yes.
Kurzweil,
Yes.
Pelchat.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Motion passes. Move on to unfinished business number 2 this evening. Road improvement plan discussion, bonding.
Tonight, we have another discussion and presentation regarding the long-term repair of our roads, including discussing bond for the improvements and the potential for placing this on the August 22 primary ballot. We have information from our bond counsel and financial advisor on the road improvement program attached. And we've included the information that was provided last meeting from our engineers regarding the pacer rating, as well as the information regarding whether it was a Headley override or the bonding, as well as the details regarding the cost for repairs of the specific roads.
Patrick McCow as well as Warren Creamer are here tonight to address the issues relating to sources of the funds and the bond debt and regarding series. And I'll turn it over to Warren to discuss some of those particulars right now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate the opportunity to be here with you this evening. There were two documents that I sent over to the city manager earlier this week. We have our preliminary sizing and debt service calculations that are based on our estimate of current market conditions and the city's current taxable value of $417,000. Also included is an Excel spreadsheet, which includes a millage impact analysis based on the city's taxable value of $417 million. It was our understanding that the city's desire was to finance improvements totaling approximately $17 million and finance them in two series. With the first series not exceeding a millage impact of 2 mills. And then after some outstanding unlimited tax general obligation debt is paid off, that millage impact would increase to 5 mills. And that's what's been included here. You can see in 2024, 25, and 26, debt service is approximately $833,000. 2 mills at the city's current taxable value is approximately $834,000. And then with the retirement of the outstanding unlimited tax debt, the millage impact would go up to 5 mills, which totals approximately $2,081,000, which is just under the 3 mill cap, assuming no growth of $2,085,000.
So council, that is one scenario that we discussed where we would add approximately 2 mills to pay off the bond debt that was generated for this. That's why that $17 million amount was chosen. So it was working back those figures to determine what the city could actually afford. As was mentioned, this is using no growth in any sort of property tax values within the city. Of course, we expect that there will be some, but we just conservatively just said none, and that was what would the millage rate impact would be. We'd be happy to answer any questions regarding this. We have a lot of time to be able to work out specific details over the next several months before something like this potentially would be on a ballot. And right now, these numbers, obviously are based upon these interest rates that are out there. So that potentially could change by the time this is fully written out within a ballot proposal. You're provided that information today that does show what the ballot proposal potentially would look like for the ballot. And we're here to answer any questions that you may have regarding specific details. We can also work out additional scenarios if you wish as we move forward with this process. I'm sorry, did I accidentally put everybody on mute? I apologize if I did.
Councilmember Kurtzwell, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had an opportunity over the past couple of weeks to chat with citizens in town regarding the financing and sort of do a little bit of a tea leaf kind of, or take people's temperature on where they're at. And I also had an opportunity to read the email that was forwarded to us today also. So let's first start with the options. It appears that the two options for financing deal with the Headley override up to 5 mills or just a straight out bond funding. Do I have that correct?
That's correct. And that millage would be up to 5 mils if that was what the language that was desired by council. It could go a little bit more, but that was what it was, we discussed at the last meeting.
Okay. People are not pleased with a Headley override. I'm just letting you know that temperature read doesn't appear to be doing well. So I'm just getting that out there. And I don't know if I could approve something with a Headley override. I don't mind going with the bond funding. And I think that I discussed the issues at the last meeting as to why the bond was preferred over the Headley override. And that is mainly is that you get the money up front to be able to start your projects. Rather, with the Headley override, you have at least 3 years before you can even start doing any construction work. So I just want to get that out there. On the bond issuing, it looks like there are potentially going to be 2 issues on the bond. Is that what you're looking at? 2 separate issues?
That is correct.
Why don't you just do 1 issue and get the lower interest rate? Because I mean, if this is a 10-year bond, then I would say that your first 5 years of your bond issue are going to have a lower interest rate possibly than the next 5 years. Why don't we just get it all over with at once?
Well,
That's what we did, I thought, with the sewer and water department.
I understand completely, and you can thank the IRS for this. And I think Pat McGow can speak to this in more detail than I can. But in order to move forward with a bond issue, you have to have the reasonable expectation that you're going to expend bond proceeds within a 3-year period of time. During that 3-year period of time, your engineers have identified approximately $7.5 million of improvements. We've sized a bond issue based on the constraints that we discussed earlier. And it just so happens, rather coincidentally, that your net bond proceeds is approximately $7.5 million. That money will be spent over the next 3 years, and then you'll have the opportunity, to finance the second series. The city is a very, very strong credit with the current AA rating of AA. I tend to agree with you. It would be nice if we could lock in these rates now. I think we all agree that interest rates are going to rise. We're at historic lows right now. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. However, there are certain constraints in which we have to reside. So we've done what we can. And right now we're looking at a true interest cost of approximately 1.61%. We've been conservative in that estimate. And for a 10-year financing, I think that's pretty remarkable.
I guess I'm not catching. I'm not following the point. What is it about the IRS that says you can't push out all the bonds at one time?
Well, I'll jump in on that. So there's actually 2 reasons to the answer to your question. Warren was giving the legal answer, which is legally, when a city or any governmental entity issues tax-exempt bonds, you have to expect to spend all the money within 3 years. The schedule that you have, I'm not sure that you could spend $17 million worth of bond proceeds on road projects in a 3-year period. I think the idea is that it's usually a much longer period of time. But there's really 2 reasons, though, why there's 2 issues. The legal issue is that you have to expect to spend the money. The other side of this is the financial issue. As Warren said earlier, one of the things that was done here was to time the second bond issue for when the millage is coming off from the wastewater plant. So the idea is that the taxpayers are currently paying a debt millage on the wastewater plant. And so when that expires, the new bond issue comes on, because once you issue, if you issued all the bonds in year 1, you would be paying interest on $17 million. and you would have to be levying, close to 5 mils. So the idea by delaying the second bond issue is that it times the millage impact to the taxpayers for when that sewer millage is coming off, so there's not going to be as big of an impact. So even if you could spend all the money, this is still done to sort of keep that debt millage at a more level amount based on the timing on when the wastewater millage comes off. So it's very common for road projects to be done in multiple series to stagger them based upon a multi-year construction schedule, but also in this case to also help level out the debt impact to the taxpayers.
So then the reason then that the city manager is asking to, I want to make sure I get this right. The reason the city manager is asking to start this process now and get things moving now and pay some costs out of our general fund to sort of do what we need to do is so that when the bonds issue, we've got our administrative issues behind us and we're ready to start the clock ticking on that 3-year use of funds. Is that sort of why, Paul, you're asking that some of this work be done ahead of time without the bond being issued?
Well, we're looking at starting the work as quickly as possible, but for designing $3.5 or $5 million worth of work, if the ballot doesn't in fact pass, if it was put before the voters in August, would be very difficult and very quick. So we're looking at starting a project the following year, and I think it was identified about $1.5 million, and then after that was escalated to $3.5 million. But it was specifically, and as I was mentioning or discussed and Patrick just outlined, we were trying to time this so the residents would only see a 2 mil increase to what they're looking at right now, perpetually through the 10-year time frame. So we would time all that work by issuing the bonds, by starting $1.5 million the first year, then moving up to approximately $3.5 million the next year. But there is a fund balance within the Act 51 funds for local major streets of approximately $3 million. We potentially could use some of those funds to start the project if we wanted to do something a little bit more than the first year. But what we showed in that particular outline that was identified that said bond funding, the Act 51 cost or construction cost, was that we potentially could take out about $500,000 per year out of that Act 51 fund balance with the revenue that's coming every single year, and not really see it really totally affect that. That would leave us totally cash poor within the Act 51 funds.
May I proceed, Mr. Mayor?
Yep,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Thank you. Another question then, just want to chat a little bit about interest rates. The bond is going to have an interest rate. Let's look at the first bond that's going to be issued. And let's say that that interest rate is 2% or 2.5%. If the city is able, and I'm just looking at the academics of this a little bit. But let's say the city has $8 million in its general fund. The bondholder really doesn't care where the money is coming from to make the payment. So if I make the payment out of the general fund, then I would not need to charge a mill to cover the debt servicing on the bond, let's say for year one. It can't, is that a scenario that is permitted? Or do you have to make those payments on the bond solely from the raising of monies off of the taxpayers through a mill?
No, you can make the bond payments from other sources if you have them. The vote of the approval of the bond gives you the authority to make that debt levy. But if you had other available funds, you could apply those towards the debt service and then reduce the millage accordingly.
So if the city had a good year and they wanted to ease up a little bit on the millage increase, they could do that by looking for other sources of revenue.
And that could be done each year on an annual basis. So once, this is part of an annual budget process. You set the debt millage levy the same time you set your operating levy. And so if you had funds to apply, from MTF dollars or other sources, you could apply those and then budget a smaller, lesser debt millage amount each year. That would be an annual decision by the council at that time as part of the budget process when setting the debt levy.
And could you explain for the benefit of council and everybody, what does it mean to have an unlimited tax bond?
Sure. Yeah. So, and we talked a little bit about this in June, but basically when we talk about bonds, when the voters approve a bond issue, whether it's a school bond or a bond like this by the city for roads, it is essentially authorizing the city to issue bonds in the amount in the ballot for the purpose in the ballot, which is the roads. And then that gives the city the legal ability to levy a debt millage each year in an amount necessary to pay the debt service. That debt millage levy does not count against your charter millage levy. This is something that the voter approval gives you the ability to levy that tax at whatever rate you need to in order to pay the debt service. So that's why we call it an unlimited tax bond, because let's say we have another real estate problem and taxable values in the city go down 10%. You would have the ability to increase the debt millage levy by 10% in order to cover that debt service. So that's why it's an unlimited. It's not unlimited in the sense you can levy whatever you want. It's limited by the amount of the annual debt service, but it is not capped by a rate. So unlike your charter millage, which says you can levy X mills, the vote of the people approving the bond issue gives you the ability to levy a debt millage at whatever rate you need to cover the bonds, which makes it a very solid security for investors. And it's why you can borrow at very low interest rates, because it's considered to be a very creditworthy instrument. The city has a great credit rating, and the bondholders know that you're going to levy the money you need to cover them each year. So that's why it's called an unlimited tax general obligation bond.
Well, I think that's an additional reason why I like the bond over the Headley override, because let's put us in the year 2009, and let's say that we were attempting to go ahead and issue bonds through a Headley override. I think that would be kind of tough, wouldn't it?
I mean, it would mean that, if a city received less money, you would have less revenue generated from those taxes. So certainly the real estate, decline in values in 2009 impacted revenues, and you at the city know that very well. Some cities were, greatly impacted, others less so. But approving the millage rate does not give you a certainty of a revenue amount.
That's the key right there with the Headley override, is there is not the predictability that one would have if you were issuing the bonds. And then the last question is it's my understanding that bonds are contracts. And so the city has a contract with the bondholder or the investor to make and service the bonds according to the debt schedule. So because of that, it bars an inability to pay the bond off early, because the investor is looking for that guaranteed stream every year. How does that work?
Yes and no. So you're absolutely correct that it is a contract with bondholders. The city is committing to generate enough money from taxes in order to pay the bond. The issue about whether you can pay it off early is really driven by market and timing. So typically we can have bonds that are callable early if there are provisions in the bond for that. And we have bonds sometimes that are not callable and not payable early. In the market today, generally municipal bonds are not callable for the first 10 years. Bonds that are longer than that are usually callable within 10 years. And that's something that's part of Warren's role, is to evaluate that, because if you make the bonds callable at any time, you're correct that investors may not want to buy them if they know they're not going to have that return. So the market standard is bonds are usually not callable for the first roughly 10 years. So if you do a 20-year bond, you can pay it off in year 10, and that's usually when you would refinance. We would address this at the time the bonds were sold, but typically, since we're looking at a 10-year bond, my guess is they would probably be sold as non-callable based on what the current market norm is on callable bonds. Sometimes we've had years in which we do 7 or 8 year calls, but that's why in this case, they're probably not callable since they're considered to be short. A 20-year bond would be callable in roughly 10 years.
That is correct.
Well, if you're going to call a bond, I guess, and clear this up for me. Say I want to pay the bond off in year 8 and you're issuing callable bonds, okay? Let's just say, I want to pay it off in 8 years. Am I not paying off the investor the interest that they would get in year 9 and 10?
You
Or
are
no,
not.
am I only paying interest up to year 8?
Correct. So when you have a bond with a call provision, it says in there, in the documents, the bonds can be called early and the interest is due up until the call date. So, so investors know, you know, if they buy a 20-year bond, they know it's got a 10-year call and they could be taken out in 10 years. Or if they buy a 10-year bond with an 8-year call, they're not expecting to get the rest of that interest. But that's stated upfront in the documents and it's priced that way. So that's why, you know, when we do refinancings, for example, which we've done for the city in the past, a 20-year bond, often we're calling it in early in year 10 to get a lower interest rate for the last 10 years. So you're only liable for the interest up until the call date.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Good questions, Councilmember Kurtzwell. Does anyone else have anything?
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
one thing I wanted to point out too is regarding the difference between the Headley override and the bond is that the Headley override doesn't necessarily guarantee to anybody in the public who's voting on it, if that was to appear on a ballot, that those dollars would be used for roads. You're just limiting the amount at which the city is allowed to levy. And what the city would levy and would approve every year for road improvements would be based upon the budget approval process. If the bond and the payment, and this, it is mentioned within the ballot language that that goes and the payments strictly go for road improvement. So the public is voting on road improvement and the bonds. Headley is just a little bit different than that.
Thank you. I want to thank Patrick and Warren for being here tonight too. Appreciate you guys' insight on that. Last call. Does anyone have anything for Patrick or Warren here? Councilmember Kivel, go ahead.
The idea that the bond, you had mentioned the idea that if you were to call it in early, well, actually, I guess the part that I was really focused on, people accepting the fact that the bond is, we could end up paying it off or calling, man, I've really kind of clumsily mixed myself up here. I'm just gonna regather and see if I can put together what I was trying to get at. I'm sorry. I waited an awful long time and it got smeared in my head. So thanks.
All right. Sorry. I'm sure if it comes back to you, Councilmember Kivel, we can get an email out. We'll get to the bottom of it for sure.
That's fine. Thank you.
So thank you again, Patrick and Warren, for being here tonight. Appreciate your insight. Have a great rest of your night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move on to new business number 1 this evening. Purchase of 3 sets of firefighting turnout gear. Chief Vogel, am I coming to you on that?
Yep.
Okey-doke.
Yep. Just our annual request for 3 purchases. Last year we skipped for budget reasons. We're getting pretty desperate again. We have a bunch of expired gear over 10 years old. Department is pretty healthy staff-wise. We just need 3 sets of gear really bad. We found a new vendor that we love. He's been working with us on price. And we're pretty excited about this vendor, and we're hoping to get this 3 sets approved so we can get some firefighters and gear that's not falling apart. Questions?
Councilmember Kennedy, go ahead.
I mean, we'll go through this. We had gone through this before, so I'd like to just make the motion to award the purchase of 3 sets of firefighting turnout gear to Phoenix Safety Outfitters for $8,533.32 from account number 101-335-721.
Thank you,
Now I'll
Councilmember
support it.
Yep. So we have a motion by Councilmember Kennedy, supported by Councilmember Walton. Do we have any further discussion for Chief Vogel? City Clerk Deaton, could you lead us in a roll call vote, please?
Kennedy,
Yes.
Walton,
Yes.
Kurzweil,
Yes.
Dilg,
Yes.
Kibble,
Yes.
Richards,
Yes.
Pelchat. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion
Thanks, Council.
passes. Thanks, Chief. New business number 2 this evening, bond council engagement.
Based upon the city's need for the review of the agreement for the lease purchase agreement for the fire equipment, we are engaging the assistance of Miller Canfield. Patrick has been very forthcoming in assisting us with this whole process. We've attached information in the memo from our bond counsel outlining their role and services to be provided and the conflict of interest policy and fee. The possible course of action is to approve or not approve the hiring of Miller Canfield, Paddock and Stone PLC to assist the city in the equipment lease purchase agreement for the fire equipment. The bond counsel is also here, and Patricia's here also to answer any questions you may have regarding this particular engagement agreement.
Councilmember Kurtzwell, go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to move to approve the hiring of Miller Canfield, Paddock and Stone PLC to assist the city in the equipment lease purchase agreement for fire equipment.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Kurtzwell, supported by Councilmember Kennedy. Do we have any further discussion? City Clerk Deaton, could you please again lead us in a roll call vote?
Richards,
Yes.
Kibble,
Yes.
Kennedy,
Yes.
Walton,
Yes.
Dilg,
Yes.
Kurzweil,
Yes.
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes. Move on to the budget this evening. Councilmember Kurtzwell.
Thank you. My questions are addressed to Patricia. The question I have is that we approved a different formula for the water bills. And is consumption up or is water consumption down this year? And are our water revenues changing or moving up and down? What's the read on that?
Well, the water and wastewater flow report that we receive around the time that we perform the annual audit. I just received that this afternoon from the water department, and I haven't had a chance to review it. So I will be able to answer that at the next meeting, or I can send an email out later this week if you would prefer. But also with our billing, we sent out water bills that would have been for March, April, May, went out on June 30th, and they're due July 30th. And so those are coming in now. So we'll have a better gauge after we have been able to evaluate all the water billing reports, and then again, that water and wastewater flows reports. So we can compare the billing for July, which will just give us a brief snapshot of where we're at going forward, to last year's whole fiscal year, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I just can't imagine anybody has their sprinkler systems on this year.
And unfortunately, the way we do our billing cycle for our water and our wastewater, we won't know that till the next billing, the October billing, because that's what we'll have then June, July, and August. So I assume that those bills will be smaller than typical.
Well, then how do you make up for the revenue?
That's a good point. I'm not sure what we will do. You know, we're very conservative when we develop those budget numbers. So we definitely always skew down a little bit, just again, rather than, you know, shooting for what we think our totals are going to be, but going down a little bit to be conservative, to cover any losses that we might have because of heavy rainfall and people not using their sprinklers, or you know, the pandemic. We're concerned about where we might be in the fall again, if there was some sort, you know, businesses shutting down and not using their utilities as well. So I'm hoping that we're going to even out. But we probably will be a little bit behind. This is, again, me just estimating at this point, for the first 2 quarters, and then probably into the 3rd quarter, I would hope that we would be back to our normal cycle.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. You're always so well prepared. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Anyone else with anything on the budget? Councilmember Kennedy.
Yeah, for Patricia, just to follow up on that. So, we did raise the ready to serve charge. So that basically is going to help address the fixed costs for the water and sewer department. So, those costs are going to be somewhat covered. The other is the variable cost. If nobody uses the water, then also the costs for producing that water are going to go down, the amount of chemicals and everything else that we're also not using at the same time. So a little bit of it might be covered with the increase in the ready to serve adjustment that we made.
Absolutely. Just a reminder though, that the RTS, the ready to serve fee that we traditionally put on utility bills is no longer, that we now have the meter fee scale. So based on the meter size that's in your home or your business. So when our residents and our business owners are looking at their water bills, they do look a little bit different since we don't have that RTS fee anymore.
Right, but it was an administrative fee, but again, for most of the homeowners, I think it's a $23 something fee versus the $6 that we used to have.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything on the budget this evening? Councilmember Kibble.
Just a quick one. I mean, over time, things will end up equalizing irrespective of, we've had a lot of water lately. That'll end up changing and it'll ultimately serve us well. I mean, it'll do what the expectation was for the rate increases. This is just a blip on, weather.
Yep.
I have something.
Go ahead, Councilman Richards.
Patricia, if you remember my question from last council meeting, is it safe to say that you can give us an answer on the rollover from last year at the next council meeting, okay? Regarding unused funds from the 2020 budget.
Councilmember Richards, I will have a better idea of where we're at the next council meeting, but we will still unfortunately be posting back a few expenditures because we do have 60 days from the close of the fiscal year, and we are still actively collecting invoices from vendors at this time, mainly for our water and sewer department, as well as our DPW, where we have, our contractual services such as phosphate and things like that we purchase quite a bit of, that we have a set time when they send out those invoices. So I can certainly, when I give out the report at the next meeting, you can see very close to where we're probably going to end the year, but there will still be some movement. So really, most likely the first meeting in September is when we will know what those, final numbers are going to look like, and those will go into the annual report.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll move on to public comment. Please remember to state your name and address. Please remember the 2-minute time limit. City Clerk Deaton, do we have anyone volunteering for public comment this evening?
Ryan Lair.
Okay, Mr. Flair, when you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ryan Lair, 716 Grand Court, President, South Lyon. I just basically wanted to update the residents. I was driving home from Plymouth when we encountered the severe weather that we were out on the road in Plymouth, out walking our dog over in Plymouth and Bilkie Field there while we watched trains, and we heard the tornado sirens. So we immediately vacated and head back to South Lyon. And on our way there, we encountered torrential downpours and rain, and we made it home safe. And we were obviously monitoring the weather from Channel 7. And I want to thank the meteorologist over there at Channel 7 for doing such an amazing job. Channel 4 just stopped broadcasting because of the Olympics, and Channel 7 just kept going the whole time. And I think that's important for people all over Oakland County and Macomb and Wayne that was experiencing these terrible storms. As soon as I was safe to do so, I did break in with a video message for our residents, letting know that we were safe and that we were clear of all warnings. And I did go out the previous morning and I did not see much damage in South Lyon. I did see a couple of trees down. And I did post that on the South Lyon News Weather, Fire and Police group page. And so I think exactly like you said, Mr. Mayor, that we were very fortunate. I already knew that Chief Vogel was already on this situation pretty quickly, and I knew that the police department was as well. So I need to thank our entire city council, our first responders. We're very fortunate to live in this city, and my heart goes out to Armada and several of the communities that were heavily impacted by this terrible storm. Global warming is happening. I just wish we would quit kicking the can down the road. It's pretty evident. That's all I have tonight, and glad everybody's safe, and that's always paramount. Thanks again. Night.
Thank you, Mr. Lair. City Clerk Deaton, did we have anyone else for public comment this evening?
We do not.
Okay, we'll close public comment. We'll move on to the manager's report with City Manager Zelnick.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just want to report upcoming meetings will be coming before City Council regarding the broadcasting equipment, as well as discussion I mentioned at last meeting regarding the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Also, to inform everybody that may be listening tonight, also we're scheduled to come back for in-person meetings beginning September 13th. Our city staff is monitoring the ever-changing environment as it relates to COVID-19. Our staff will continue to update everyone as it relates to local, county, state, or federal mandates or guidelines that may be put in place prior to that particular date. We have bid out again for the cemetery and volunteer park grading. I'll be advising council as we move forward with collecting bids for that. As was mentioned earlier in the meeting by Chief Sovic, the concerts in the park and movie night are coming before the residents of the community on July 30th as well as August 20th. I provided information to council members regarding the city website, regarding the redesign. I'll be coming forward as we move that process along. It's not a functioning website, but you do get a good look on what the design of the new cycle or the new site would look like. Also on Thursday's Planning Commission meeting, they'll be having the public hearing on the Mural Ordinance that will be coming before them. So that's this Thursday night. And we'll move forward with further discussions regarding the road improvement plan. I'll be updating council at future meetings about preparation of information and helping you, as well as making residents aware of potential decisions that we're going to be making regarding improving our roads in the community. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody may have.
Councilmember Walton, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Paul, can we get an update on the handicap swing?
I'm sorry, on the what?
The handicap swing at the park?
That is scheduled to be delivered the first week of August. I received information from the supplier. And when we get that equipment delivered and they start to work on the preparation of the area, I will update all of you.
Thank you. Also, just a quick cleanup thing. On the front of our agendas, it says, please see reverse side for rules of conduct for public comment at city council meetings. There's nothing on the reverse side, so we either would need to put those back on there or take that line off.
Oh, that might not have been copied in the last meeting or in this packet. I'm sorry about that occurred. We'll make sure
okay.
it's on there for next meeting.
It was on there at the last few meetings too, and I forgot to mention it. So thank you.
Councilmember Dill, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question. I was wondering if we have, I cannot remember. I know you told me when you were thinking about getting started on the crosswalk in front of the hotel.
I'll have to talk with Doug Varney about that. I know we had talked about ordering that equipment and make sure we got the right equipment per county specifications, as well as the input of the chief as well. So
I missed, there was some noise. I didn't hear the last part of what you said, sorry.
We had discussions with Oakland County regarding making sure we're getting the proper equipment, as well as with Chief Sovic regarding what the type of equipment that we were looking at. But I will talk with Doug about that and give you an update.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Kurtzwell, go ahead.
Thank you. I had two questions for the city manager. The first one is dealing with the Thursday night meeting of the Planning Commission to discuss the mural ordinance. It's my understanding that council is not supposed to attend those meetings.
I will let our attorney discuss that particular issue. I know that's been brought up at prior meetings regarding attending meetings or potentially influencing a decision that may be made at one of those meetings.
We actually incorporated in our rules and procedures of council that you should not attend planning commission and ZBA meetings. There's a lot of case law out there and AG opinions about the potential of a conflict of interest as to whether you attend and or participate and whether you should abstain when you come to city council. And obviously your job is city council. So we strongly encourage that you do not attend and potentially open that door for an issue for us down the line.
I'd like to continue on that issue. Let's say it, Paul, are the planning commission meetings still on Zoom?
Yes, they are.
Does that also mean that I cannot attend a Zoom meeting?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, as an attendee.
If you are showing your name where your presence may influence a decision, I would discourage that. If you simply attended without a name, without anybody recognizing it was you, not that I'm saying that you should do that. I'm just saying it would be, it would, the appearance, and then you definitely wouldn't say anything. So there'd be no participation and your appearance wouldn't even have any implication on the planning commission members. So I would have less of a concern if you attended without your name, without any ID.
So let's say that the Zoom meeting is now put on YouTube. What you are saying does not prevent me from at least watching the YouTube video, so I could at least get a flavor for how the arguments were going back and forth. Is that permissible?
Yeah, if they're recorded, anybody can watch the meetings. It's really about having any influence on the planning commission members at all or participating in any of the discussion.
At the time the decision is being made.
Well, yes, but I mean, your clarification concerns me a little because you really shouldn't offer input at the planning commission level because you'll have that opportunity when it comes to you.
No, I get that, but the point of all of this is to make sure that the council member does not have undue influence while the decisional process is moving through the planning commission.
That's absolutely correct.
Okay.
And you'll have your opportunity when it comes to you.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Next to the city manager regarding Parks and Recs, when we have them up at our next city council meeting or whatever, do you have anything in place, or is there a strategy in place to begin looking for grants to begin to develop McCaddy Park? Is there an outline or anything? You have some very qualified people in City Hall. Carol Brandon is excellent. She's a great researcher. She has a real interest in doing those deep dives and looking for information. So I know she would do a good job, but is that on somebody's radar?
Yes, and that's specifically one of the items that Carol specifically does on a regular basis with all department heads. Most of the grants that you see through that came through fire department were Carol assisting Chief Vogel. The grants that we look at specifically are addressing items that are within our current year's budget. But we are constantly on the outlook for other items that may become available or something that may come down the line that were not planned or that were not originally provided to us at the time that we were originally discussing or approving our budget. So that's a constant ongoing thing that all department heads are looking at. But Carol's, one of her main jobs within her title is specifically looking at grants.
But is Parks and Recs going to be a priority?
Parks and Rec, it's just like every department, but Parks and Rec, for those items that were identified within the budget this year, that's where our priority lies. That plan that came before council, it was an overall conceptual plan. But Parks and Rec does discuss some of those items, does mention when they find grants, because I get emails from them and we discuss specifically at the meetings. But McCaddy Park is just like Volunteer Park or any of the other parks. We are constantly looking for those items.
Well, I guess I'm having a hard time understanding why other cities can develop their parks with grants. And we've been sitting here for years, decades, with Volunteer Park undeveloped and McCaddy Park basically underdeveloped. I don't understand it. How can other cities do it? What are other cities doing that we are not?
I can't really add to what happened in the last 5, 10 years or 20 years. McCaddy Park is continually being developed. Looking at what we did for getting those dollars to put in that handicap equipment, I received a grant through the Brooksy Way Foundation for part of that grant. We had the money that was raised within the public trying to put something like that in. We're looking at future dollars, but it would be great that we could spend a lot of money on each one of those parks, but the majority of the grants that are offered either through the passport, the recreation grants that are offered through the state of Michigan, usually are a 50% plus match. Now, the Parks and Rec Commission has identified what are some of the first items that they would like the group to address. One was specifically starting that process with demoing the house that was on McMunn, looking at putting in additional parking within that particular area so people can park for biking. Then looking at closing off the area at the end of Washington Street to look at potential for the future water feature or park that they wanted to do that. Those items obviously are not all included within this year's budget, but applying for a grant and looking at if some of those things we potentially could leverage additional dollars, we will do that. And Parks and Rec is definitely interested in making some of those things happen. And that's why when you look at Volunteer Park, this initializing the first process of developing that park was to start the grading of that. We are starting that process to put in additional fields. And with the assistance of the Parks and Rec Commission as well as SLARA, we hope to leverage additional dollars in the future so we can do that by already having the park cleared out. We already start to design what those fields will look like. So working with our engineers, we can start to put forward plans and what the cost would be to develop that whole area to put in new fields.
Okay, thank you for that update. You're very informed. Thank you.
Councilmember Kimball?
First off, I wanted to start with it's my understanding that planning and ZBA aren't on YouTube. They're not recorded and then posted. So we wouldn't have the benefit of being able to watch them after the fact, which is really just, I'm surprised that we don't do that, because I think that when you look at a lot of other people's websites, they certainly have, I mean, it's typically you go to ZBA and you punch the button and you get the roster, much as our meetings, you just click on the meeting that you'd like to watch and they're there. So that might end up being something that we should push for. And one of the big problems that we're having that say Milford or Novi don't have is Novi's got ITC to cover an enormous amount of the costs over at their park. LaFontaine with the theater at Central Park in Milford. We need to search high and low to try to find a benefactor with deep pockets that wants to end up helping, apparently. So if we can't find something of that nature, it's going to be a very slow slog for us to get the kind of growth in our parks that we're all hoping that we can find. So I just wanted to, I guess that's probably all I need to really say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kimball. Anyone else with anything for the city manager this evening? Great. Thanks for the update, Paul. Move on to council comments this evening. Councilmember Kennedy, why don't you kick us off?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, I just want to remind everyone of all the events planned for this coming weekend. First up will be the concerts at the Historical Village on Friday from 7 p.m. until 8:30 p.m. This week's artist will be Fast Eddie's band, and they'll be performing 50s classic rock and blues. And then from 7 p.m. until 9 p.m. on Friday in McCaddy Park, there will be a bounce house and some games to entertain the kids before showing the movie in the park when it gets dark. The featured movie will be Crudes, A New Age. And then the Kiwanis of South Lyon will have hot dogs and popcorn available for purchase for both of those events. Then on Saturday, we have the farmers market, obviously, from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. with the Kona Ice and Motor City Pasty food trucks. Then we'll have the all-day Motor Fest from 11 a.m. until 5 p.m. The awards will be presented from 4 until 5. It'll feature lots of classic cars, and the band Magic Bus will perform 2 sets. The first will be from 12 noon until 1:30, and the second will be from 2:30 until 4 p.m. Also, there will be lots of all kinds of food with Mancini's Pizza, setting up a stand by Providence, the Corner Social, South Lyon Hotel, and Lake Street Tavern will all be featuring great food, and the Geno's Dogs food truck will be stationed by the First Presbyterian Church. So there's going to be something for everyone, so come to South Lyon this weekend for all kinds of fun. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kennedy. Councilmember Richards.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will try to stick it at 2 minutes, okay, but I might go a little bit over. Okay, 5 items. Number one, our museum had 25 visitors on the 18th, and as of last Sunday, we had only 4 on the 25th. But that was due to the extreme heat conditions. I assume they all talked about it. And we're grateful for the participation that we are getting. The historical meeting that was a new one on the 11th last week was very well attended in the Freight House. The first time this has ever been done in this time frame, and plans for Depot Day are moving along well. Okay, number 2. This past Friday, I met with Doug Varney, the 23rd at 10 a.m. at the water treatment plant on Dorothy Street. Regarding our capital improvement project and overall site development and the delays that have gone on for the past 6 weeks, basically. I don't care to go into all the details at this time. It would be counterproductive, but the work is expected to go on, start up again this week. He's assured me that things are going to be moving forward. It's pretty complex. And also, he asked me to find him a contractor for the roof that has been required by HRC to be replaced. 2 of them, I believe. One at the DPW yard and the other one right there on site at Dorothy Street. And I accumulated a list of 3 contractors that are local. And I plan to present that to him tomorrow or the next day. Number 3. The cleanup that I talked about last time on the west end of the bike path along the tube mill has started, but the progress has been slowed by conditions. Okay, but it's not a short-term affair. It's going to be a long-term affair. Okay, the next one. I've noticed when I've gone through the knolls that there appears to be several homes that have been built and occupied, and in the last year, they've been vacated. And there's no for sale sign on there. I haven't found out much more about it, but I'm interested in finding out more about this situation, what's happened, why the people have moved out of those homes. That's it's kind of disturbing to me since they were brand new homes. Next to last, best wishes for our Motor Fest event this Saturday. And I hope everyone can attend. I hope we get great weather. And lastly, congratulations to the citizens that are running for office this November, and shows a great deal of community interest on their part. And I wish them all well in their endeavors and continued efforts to help the city. Thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Richards. Councilmember Dill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I only have a couple things. I just want to say I'm looking forward to the movie night in concert in the park. Seriously disappointed to miss Motorfest, but I really hope everybody gets a chance to get out there. I want to say welcome and congratulations to Curvin's Creamery on their opening. I saw that they had a ton of business, so that was excellent. Long awaited opening. And I also wanted to say good luck to all the candidates that are running for council. Some really good names on the ballot, and I'm just hoping everybody keeps it positive, and really looking forward to see how that plays out. And I just wanted to let Councilmember Kurzweil know that I got new sod, so I am keeping the water going because I'm the only one watering every day. So I'm doing my part. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Kurzweil. Councilmember Walton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a couple things as well. The Creamery, I was very excited to see that opening, and Lisa, I did think of you when I saw their grand opening because I know you've asked about it several times, and I kept looking for you in the pictures. I unfortunately was not able to be there that night myself, but I'll be visiting soon. Just a reminder, movies in the park this Friday, Crude's a New Age, great movie, lots of laughs. Everybody will enjoy it. It's for the adults and the kids for sure. And Motorfest on Saturday with Magic Bus. You can't go wrong with Magic Bus. I know my mother follows them and I like to see them every now and then myself. So great time, looking forward to it. And that's it. We'll see everybody in person September 13th. So that's kind of exciting too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Walton. Councilmember Kill.
I'm in the same boat with everybody else. The concert in the park, the movies in the park, that's hopefully going to be terrific, weather permitting. Let's everybody keep your fingers crossed. The same with the Motorfest. It's going to be nice to have these things that have become staples over the time, kind of reinvigorating us to see that we have a community. We have events in our community that weren't going into town to visit with your neighbors, visit with people that you don't know. So that'll be very exciting. The Curvin thing was really cool. It was hotter than blazes on that day. There must have been 20 people inside the building when I was in there, and but the kids that are making the ice cream all had a smile on their face. They kept chugging away and watching. I was always getting a little bit antsy every time I saw that nitrogen tank getting opened up because I just thought that could be trouble. But nonetheless, it was delicious. They seemed to have had a good crowd for every time I went by there during the course of the day. So I'm hoping that sustains. I did want to also ask the Planning Commission meeting is going to be for the mural language. Is that what the situation was, Paul?
It's the public hearing on the mural ordinance.
Yes, okay, all right. So, I mean, essentially, the idea of a council person watching that being conducted seems as benign an activity as is possible. You've got the public weighing in on the language that's going to be taking place on how they administer that policy. So that seems ridiculous that that anybody would suggest our watching it was going to influence something. So that's all I have. Oh no, I take that back. The Olympics. I am really geeked about the Olympics. Tomorrow, hoping like crazy. Katie Ledecky had 3 races today, the 200, the 400, and the 1500, that she just smoked all of them. And she's going to be back there tomorrow for the finals of those first thing in the morning. I hope her all the best, and all of them have really, they're making the best out of a goofy situation with COVID and all that over there. So I'm going to keep the flag rolling with them. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kittle. Councilmember Kurzweil.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to welcome all the new employees that are coming into our great city. Specifically, I'd like to welcome the new employees at Bush's Grocery Store. We have some new young adults at the cash register, so please shop this great grocery store and welcome these new employees to our city. Next, there are some new employees at Lucas Coney Island. So please, when you go into Lucas Coney Island, go in and ask to be seated in an area where there's a new employee, and welcome that new employee to our city of South Lyon. Like to also thank all the new employees that are working at Curvin's Creamery. So thank you, young adults, for stepping in, joining the workplace, and developing a really, really good work ethic. You're in a great city. We support you. Come to work every day. You're going to learn great lessons. So thank you so much. Next, I'd like to welcome back the best maitre d' ever. If you have ever been in a restaurant where Charles Duty has been the maitre d', you are in for a treat, which is probably better than the dessert you can get on your menu. So Charles, I just want to welcome you back as being one of the area's best maitre d's. He is now seating guests at the number 6 Prime at 4 Points by Sheridan, and that is in Novi. I'd like to thank everybody from DPW for your continued assistance in Paul Baker Park. DPW replaced some broken arches on the gazebo and then put some new paint on it too. Oh, and thank you for removing the shoe that somebody tossed on the top of the gazebo. It looks nice now without that shoe. And last but not least, everybody, get to Motorfest. Motorfest is just a great opportunity to get outside, enjoy your friends, enjoy your neighbors, bring a chair and listen to some great, great music, especially Magic Bus. They are just fabulous. They got a great following. This is just a time to get out, see all the shop owners, look at all our restaurants, and just really, really enjoy yourself. It's going to be a great weekend. So thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Councilmember Kurtzwell. I just want to echo what everyone else has said. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone this weekend. Should be a great weekend in the community. Fingers crossed for the weather. I want to thank our friends at the American Legion for an absolutely great golf outing over the weekend. The weather played nice on Saturday after some early morning showers, but it was an awesome event. And, the course was in great condition considering the weather we've had lately. So thank you to all of our friends at the American Legion for putting on a great golf outing this past weekend. It was great to see everybody out there. They do a lot of amazing things here in our community. That money stays right here to support our veterans. So it's awesome to be a part of that. So with that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn this evening. Councilmember Kurtzwell.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a great night, all.
Good night.